So the problem of practice in middle grades writing most often is engagement, because there are very few kids who enjoy writing. So that was where I started in this grant process, was that problem of practice. We can skip through this. So the first thing I did was I got some baseline data. How do you feel about writing? I used Google Classroom just to ask a question. Everybody gave their opinion, how they feel. Most kids said that they knew they had to write, so it was more like a chore than something that they enjoyed. I maybe had one or two kids who said they like to write at home. That's 2 8th grade classes, but they did not enjoy writing class at all. Let's see. That's some of their responses. We won't go into those. Now, the next thing I did, because I had 2 8th grade classes already, I sort of had built-in experimental groups. I had a control group that was the 802 group, and then I had the group to experiment on 801. So it's first and second periods of the day. With 801, what I decided to do was have one class that my intention was to have one class that was strictly technology-based and technology-driven, and everything they did was through the use of technology, and then one class that kind of did everything the old-fashioned way. But it's not really feasible to do that because kids have to write. They have to build those muscles up. So you have to have kids handwriting things to prompts, so you can't do technology all the time. But you also have to, especially with an 8th grade class, have technology-driven instruction for those kids so that they use a range of different types of technology. I mean, you have to do it. So that was not feasible. What ended up happening was that I had one 8th grade class that the big difference was that they blogged. Like when they responded to prompts, that the majority of prompts, now sometimes they hand wrote, but when they responded to prompts, they did it in a blog format. And then the other class, they just responded by hand to all those prompts. Let's see. As you can see, traditional writing in 802. So 801 was the class that blogged. It was difficult at first because none of us were familiar. None of us had blogged. I had not blogged at all. We had not used the blog site when we went to EDU Blogs. It's a pay site. You can pay and have a class. It's like $14 every 3 months. But none of us really knew how to use it. So there were a lot of struggles at the beginning. But toward the middle of the year and in January, then we had kids like begging to blog. Like in the writing class in 801, let me see, this is not the right slide, I don't think. That's observations, to blog or not to blog, and pictures, and let's see. Here we go. The kids who blogged on the days they blogged, they loved it. Like they were super excited. There were no behavioral problems. The majority of the kids, now you still, in a class of 28 kids, you're going to have a couple of kids who are zoned out, who want to sleep, who have no interest in this at all. But we're talking, out of 28 kids, you have 25 kids who are engaged, who are writing, who are excited, who talk about it, who comment on each other's work in real time. So you don't have to wait and peer at it, and nobody likes to peer at it. I mean, let's face it, nobody likes to sit and read, but they enjoyed responding and commenting to each other's blogs. So it made a huge difference in engagement. Those kids loved it. I had kids who did it from home. Like they would go home, they would log into the blog site, and they would, without me saying you have homework, they just log into the blog site and write. And some of the stuff they wrote is fabulous. Let's see. So based on this experiment, next year, which I think if I teach all 3 grades, every class that I have is going to blog. If it's just 6th grade, then it'll be 6th grade specific and they'll blog. But I would recommend that maybe once a week, maybe once a month, you get kids into blogging, you get them interested in it, because it's writing in the real world. And it gets them in a place where no kid is excited about writing, but it will take them to a place, a lot of kids, where they feel that excitement and they want to do it. So I would highly recommend it based on this experiment. That's it for me. Any questions? Yay. Thank you.